Welcome everyone to another episode of Speaking Unspoken Words. Today we're going to hit on a topic that I know I personally struggle with from time to time, or used to. I think I've gotten a little better handle on it, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate to forgiveness and what it looks like, and being for a forgiving person, and the struggle sometimes with forgiving people or figuring out what that relationship needs to look like once you have decided to forgive, or once you do. So today we have our special guest back. She is a regular.
Hello.
To Speaking Unspoken Words, we have Sister Deborah with us, and so we're going to use her expertise today to kind of usher us through what forgiveness is, what it looks like, the struggles, and sometimes why we may struggle with that, and just have a conversation as we do here on this platform. So thank you again for joining us today, and we hope that you can get something from our conversation. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome back.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yes. So, and this is what you do. So this is in your wheelhouse, right? You are a licensed counselor?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me.
Licensed clinical social worker.
Clinical social worker. Okay. So tell me, what is your educational background?
Okay.
And how'd you get to that?
I have a BSW, Bachelor of Social Work, and then I went on to get my Master's of Social Work with a clinical concentration, because I knew I wanted to minister to folks through the platform of therapy.
Okay.
And so that's my clinical background.
Okay. And so, and that was a question that I had. So you said you knew that you wanted to minister to people. Where do you think that came from, in you to want to help others?
I think it came from growing up in a family where there were just lots of struggles. We were blessed in so many ways also, but I had a front row seat to dysfunction. I had a front row seat to seeing folks struggle who were broken and who just really didn't know. I think both of my parents did the best they could do with the understanding and awareness they had at the time. But my father was a very accomplished man for his time. He was a business owner. Excuse me, he had 2 years of college, and back then that was not as common, but he had some struggles. He had struggled with alcohol, he struggled with self-control, he could be violent at times. And so growing up seeing that, I think you either go either way. You either kind of succumb to that type of environment and become hopeless or bitter or angry, or you consciously make a choice to do something different, and that's what I chose to do. So I grew up seeing that. I'm like, well, I know that some things about this isn't right. So what can I do? I mean, what is it about people? Because I was excuse me, always a curious child. What is it about people that makes them go one way or another? And so that was always very interesting to me. And so I started out maybe trying to do special ed, found out that wasn't quite my niche, and then just went on studying social work. And what I liked about social work is very holistic. It looks at the whole person. It doesn't just specialize in different things. You can, but I like that about the practice too, because I wanted to look at the whole person, not just the psychology of it or the environmental. I wanted to look at the whole thing, because I think it all plays a part.
Okay. Now, how long have you been doing this work and being a counselor?
Over 30 years.
Okay.
So quite a while.
So nice and experienced.
That is correct. That is correct.
So today we're talking about, our topic is forgiveness.
Right.
In your words, what is forgiveness? What does that mean?
Forgiveness to me is about letting go. It's about changing our mind about the experiences that we have that have hurt us. Most of us struggle because we were hurt and we felt pain with those experiences. And so I think it's just changing your perspective and really letting that go, letting go of the toxic negative emotion that's connected to that experience. Not that you're going to forget it, because I don't believe in forgive and forget. You're going to forget it. We want you to remember it so you can remember either not to go back in that direction or repeat the same mistakes or whatever. But we don't want you to hold on to the toxic emotion that's a lot of times associated with that. Because studies have shown that's very very detrimental to us, both spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, holding on to toxins. So it's about letting go of your attachment to the pain and the resentment and the blame and all that, and being able to heal from that and get a different perspective.
Okay. Now I'm gonna put you in the patient seat for a moment.
Okay.
Do you have a personal experience or a struggle or just, with forgiveness, and it's something that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yes, absolutely. I think the first person I had to forgive was my dad and my mom to a certain extent. My dad, I remember I was 7 the first time I saw him beat up my mother. And I remember because prior to then he was on a pedestal. He could do no wrong. Yeah. And once that happened, I remember him coming to me and saying, I know you didn't like what happened. And we had to talk about it. He said, I'll never do it again. And he did, of course. And I remember being so disappointed and so, wow, how could he just lie to me like that? And I know I held on because it kept happening over and over again. Okay. And I held on to that for years. And it wasn't until I got my first, I was the patient and saw my first counselor after my first marriage broke up. I knew there were lots of things that my ex-husband did that I needed to forgive him for, but I knew I brought a trunkload of that resentment and anger in the marriage that I hadn't healed yet. And so my father, I had to go back and kind of look at my father not just as my father, but as a human being too first, because he was that before he was my father. Right. And so that's when I started my forgiveness work with him, because I knew if I did not, that I would bring him into each relationship.
So you talked about your father and how it kept happening, and that was one thing that I wanted to ask you. How should repeat offenses be handled? As it, and that might depend on the relationship, right?
Exactly.
And your age with the parent, but
exactly. At that time, I had no choice. I had no choice. I witnessed it. I lived in the house that it was happening. I tried to gain an understanding about why it was happening, and then I found myself kind of looking at my mom. It's like, well, what's going on with why is this happening, and why are you still here? I just was always kind of a thinking type of kid. And I remember her telling me, well, I love him. I'm like, well, if that's love, I don't want any part of it. Yeah. I don't know if that is love supposed to hurt. So I had all these questions, so I couldn't really do anything. I didn't even know how to do anything until I became an adult and thought back about it, and with the help of counseling kind of helped me understand, the whole dynamic of that. And so I like to remind my clients and patients that I talk to, it's a process. Right. It's not one and done. Okay. It's a process that you have to go through over and over again. And I will give you an example of that. This process that I started in my 20s. And you think you kind of have it down pat. Yeah. It wasn't until my last marriage that didn't work out, when he started acting like my father. That was the biggest trigger in the world. And I remember thinking, wow, I thought I was over this. I thought that I had processed this. No. Yeah. You're going to have triggers, and they're going to come up every now and then, and I think God was just trying to show me, well, you might have a little bit more work to do. Okay. Well, you didn't really listen to me when I was trying to show you the red flags in the beginning, so you went on, so I'm going to really show you a big red flag now, so you can make a decision. And so it's a process. For me, it's been a process. Okay.
So triggers are a good thing, because I've had triggers. Okay. That's what I got from what you just said, because I think they're kind of like a warning signal that something may be going on, and there may be something that you need to pay attention to.
Absolutely.
And only when you realize that there's something there can you start doing the work to try to fix it. So
absolutely.
Okay.
They always tell us that's something you need to pay attention to.
Pay attention.
And it's our job to manage the triggers. The other folks or the situations may not change. Okay. It's our job to manage them.
Can you talk about what physical, emotional, psychological things we experience or someone might go through when someone does something to them that will require their forgiveness?
Wow. Well, I'm glad you asked that. I'm in the process of getting certified in neuropsychotherapy. And it's been so interesting to me about really learning about how the brain actually changes physiologically when we are traumatized. It changes. And the main area of the brain, the amygdala, is the area that is our fight or flight or fear center. It's also the addiction center too. But it's our fear center. So when we're traumatized or someone does something to us, that's kind of our center that kind of prepares us to do something.
Okay.
So if I am in a state of unforgiveness, that part of my brain is going to remind me over and over again, and then we all have another part of the brain that's our memory center. It's going to remind me over and over again what happened, and if it's a trauma-related thing that we're trying to forgive, it throws you back to when you first experienced it. So if I don't retrain my brain to stop that, because it's a very healthy part, we want it. It's our survival center.
Yeah.
It's helped us to survive, and it helped you to survive at that time. What happens is when we become adults and we're no longer in that situation, or even in front of that person, let's say that it's a person and you're not even in a relationship anymore. When you think about that situation, your brain reminds you of it, and so physiologically you get ready to do something.
Okay.
You're either going to fight, freeze, or flee.
Okay.
And so that's the physical part of it. And then the emotional part is you rehearsing it over and over in your head, kind of marinating in it. And then, so that brings up certain emotions, just like you were back there again.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's all connected. You can't separate these two things. And so when I see someone in my office who has numerous diseases, numerous type of conditions, I always almost know that there's trauma involved because, you know, trauma and that fight or flight sensation, if you don't do something with it, it's like me and putting my car in park and I have my foot on the gas.
Okay.
So our body is still going through all those changes, even though it doesn't need to. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is all flowing all in our bodies.
Yeah.
That can cause disease, it can cause illness, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So when people say, it's a saying that says forgiveness is for you, not for them.
Absolutely.
This is what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
It's helping you to release those things so that you can live essentially a healthy life, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I understand. I'm understanding. I'm picking up what you're putting down, counselor.
It's almost imperative that you let go of the toxic emotions because it's gonna come back to hit you if you don't.
Okay.
One way or another, excuse me.
Now, I used to be a person, I'm talking about myself now. I used to forgive. Like somebody would do something and I don't hold on to things long. So I thought it was a good thing.
Okay.
But I would also allow the same dog to bite me twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times, you know, because I was so forgiving. Okay, well, always trying to be understanding, always trying to look at a person's heart and forgive the action, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
A lot of people who were around me, they would say, like, you're crazy. Why do you keep on allowing this person back in? And it wasn't until I came under the teaching here at Christ Temple North that I, you know, like you said, you can forgive, but that doesn't mean that you have to forget. And also putting up the boundaries.
Correct. We can forgive the dog, but keep him in the pen.
Right.
Doesn't have to be close.
You don't have to keep getting bit now.
That's right.
Yeah, so I think that's a big part of forgiveness. Is like once you forgive that person, you don't have to keep allowing them into your personal space. Forgiveness is not you continuing to put yourself in a position where you have to continue to be hurt.
Absolutely.
Especially by the same person or for the same things.
Right.
Yes.
I agree.
Is there a such thing in your opinion as too much forgiveness?
I don't know about too much forgiveness, but as you said earlier, the boundary has to be there. I think we have an all or nothing approach to forgiveness. We either, well, I'm never going to forgive them because they don't deserve forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Or I need to forgive everyone and just give everyone 2 million chances. There's a lot of area in between. And boundaries are important. We can forgive people and not ever speak another word to them again.
Yeah.
Because again, it's about us. It's not about the other person. It's about you.
Yeah.
So if that person is toxic, if they have demonstrated continuously toxic behavior, then you're going to have to set a boundary. And that's honoring yourself.
Yeah.
And your authentic self is to set that boundary and just wish them well, because we can detach and love. We don't have to be angry or, hurtful to the person, but they also don't have to be in your life, because not everybody deserves to have that front seat.
I love that. Detach and love. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep it. Now, you talk about me forgiving without boundaries, which was not a good thing, and I learned that. But the opposite of that, which we mentioned, people on the other spectrum, that is like, I'm never going to forgive.
Right.
Why do you think that it's so difficult for some people to forgive?
I think it's because we have a misguided definition of forgiveness. For a lot of people, forgiveness means I'm letting you off the hook. You're not going to be accountable for your behavior.
Okay.
Well, first of all, it's not our job to make someone else accountable for the behavior. That's not up to me. Excuse me. My job is to make sure I'm in a good place, both with myself and with God. And so I think people are just very ignorant when it comes to forgiveness.
Okay.
And we've been taught, or we've learned that I'll use my mother as an example. She kept going, just stayed in the situation. My father had the opportunity and had access to her to do this to her over and over again. And she had her reasons, and I can't be inside her head to really know what those were. However, what that taught me was, wow, okay, can people just keep doing whatever they want to do to you and they have no consequences? So I think we have to learn the true nature of forgiveness is not about anybody else, it's about us, first of all. And so if you let go of that self-righteous anger that gets us holding on to unforgiveness, I think that's the first step. Just let that go, do your thing, heal you, work on you, and let God take care of the consequences for the other person.
Okay. That's what I was interested in knowing. How is it possible for someone to grow into being a more forgiving person? And what I hear you saying is, one, it's about educating yourself.
Right.
And letting go and letting God. It's it's one thing that we say. It's not up to you to try to impose the, because I think a part of it too is about wanting that person to have a consequence,
right?
Or pay for
absolutely
pay for what they've done. And so once you can release the need for that person to, suffer the consequence or pay for that, and just be like, look, it's about me. I can forgive you for this, but I'm going to set that boundary. Then I think we can begin to learn and understand better what it is to forgive, and have those boundaries and continue to move forward. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We talked about how forgiveness helps to heal yourself once you forgive someone.
Right.
Does it help the other person at all once you forgive them sometimes, I guess?
That's up to their process.
Okay.
I mean, it can.
Yeah.
Some people, first of all, if I go to, let's say I offended you, and I go to you and say, I'm sorry I did this. I hope you can forgive me for what it is. Then you have a decision to make, and I can't dictate how you're going to receive my apology.
Sure.
Forgiveness or asking for forgiveness without making amends and changing the behavior is kind of pointless, and that's what we see that a lot too. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, but then the same behavior happens over and over again. So that means that person hasn't had a change of mind to change their behavior.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can help the other person if they're in a good place to really kind of be accountable for themselves. And I say it's a two-way street, because I had to learn that, yes, there were people who had wronged me, but I had also wronged other people and been a stumbling block for other people also.
Yes.
So that also gave me a different appreciation with forgiveness. It's like, okay, I can hold on to this unforgiving spirit if I want to, but how many people have had to forgive me?
Yeah.
And so that really helped me a lot to really just and I think I may have Pastor or Sister Gwen or someone that maybe had talked about that here in the church, and that kind of gave me an even more deeper perspective of forgiveness,
absolutely,
and how I needed to let go of the unforgiving spirit. Now, again, it doesn't mean you continue to allow someone to do whatever they've been doing. You can certainly set boundaries, but don't hold on to that emotion, and don't be worried about how the other person is going to, whether it's going to, that's their process, that's their journey.
Yes. How do you start to rebuild trust with someone who's who's done something that requires you to forgive them?
I think trust takes two things. It takes an observance of what the person says and how connected it is to their actions. So if I'm rebuilding trust in a relationship when there's been a broken trust, I have to observe what you're saying and how it connects to your actions, because actions always speak louder than words. All of us have had people say things to us, but then their actions were totally opposite. And so it's a process of rebuilding. It's not a one and done. It's a lot of starts and stops. And again, it depends on if the person who was done wrong, to use that word, doesn't see any consistent change in the other person who broke the trust, it's going to be hard to rebuild that trust. It's going to be hard. And even then it's hard, because again, that part of our brain is still rehearsing what happened before. And so initially you're going to be very easily triggered by any little thing that reminds you of what happened. So it's a process.
Yes, absolutely.
Getting dry here.
For yourself and for other people. Ooh, you giving me a lot here. And we mentioned, I know you and I were under the same spiritual teaching, and you mentioned Pastor and our First Lady, Mama Gwen. Spiritually, for people who do have that spiritual side to them, what and why? Let me rephrase the question. Why do you think God expects us to be so forgiving? How important is it to, like you mentioned, other people have had to forgive us. God has forgiven us.
Absolutely.
Why must we forgive other people when it comes to a spiritual thing?
Well, first of all, we're called to do that in the Word. So that's the first reason why we need to do that. It doesn't matter how we feel about what's in the Word. That's what's in the Word. And so we are called to do that. But the second thing is, because how can I minister to others? And that's the Great Commission. That's what we're taught to do, is to go out and minister to others. How can I do that if I'm holding on to so many different that unforgiveness spirit? Because again, that's going to block, first of all, it's going to block my blessings. Second of all, it's going to prevent me from truly being authentically myself to minister to other people. And so to me, it's all about bringing God glory. And so if I can't do that if I'm stuck in the past, or stuck in he shoulda, coulda, woulda, or they did this or they did that, I guarantee you other people around me can say the same about me. So
absolutely.
That keeps me grounded when I want to veer off and think, well, I don't know if I want to. Doesn't matter what I want. I think that is, like I mentioned before, when I was just constantly forgiving people, it was me not having a clear understanding of what God's expectation of me was. It was, what the Bible. Why do you think you did?
Well, the Bible says, if somebody 7 times 7,
right.
Turn the other cheek, forgive. But I think, and I think a lot of times people can, and we've heard pastors talk about this, where someone can be in an abusive relationship and feel that, you have to submit, or you have to, and so you're called to do these things without, and I think it's up to us definitely to have a full understanding of what the Word is trying to tell us.
Exactly.
Yes, forgive, but you don't have to maintain that relationship or allow people that proximity to you anymore after they shown by looking at their behaviors, by looking at what they're saying and it not matching up, that they're not a person that deserves to be in that space anymore. And so I think my personal, one thing before I go to that, I think what we were just talking about, in knowing that God has forgiven me, and I look at all the things that I've done and that has required his forgiveness, and he gave it to me not because of anything that I've done, not because of my actions, not because I showed that I deserved his forgiveness, but he gave me his forgiveness. And it's like, if someone's doing something to me, then if I'm asking him, how could I go to God and ask him to forgive me, but then I won't even forgive my brother or my sister? So, again, making sure that we are doing that within concept of, not allowing yourself to continue to be hurt, but emotionally, spiritually, physically, even extending that forgiveness to others, because my father, I know I don't deserve it, and he forgave me for all the things that I do and continue to do, and I know I'm going to continue to have to go to him and ask for his forgiveness for things, because I'm not perfect. But again, even in my relationship with him, showing him that I'm trying to do better and changing the actions, and not just, oh God, forgive me, and knowing I'm going to go back tomorrow and continue the same actions. So, my personal experience with forgiveness, and my struggle, the biggest struggle that I had with forgiveness, of course, as I stated, it wasn't forgiving other people. I did that, no problem. But it was in forgiving myself.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up.
That was the hardest thing for me in my personal experience. And the thing that I struggled the most with was when I was young, in my late teens, 18, 19 years old. And I say it in the book. I tell the story where I made a decision at that time to have an abortion. And for years, I tormented myself. I couldn't watch a TV show where a lady was having the discussion about having an abortion without me feeling this immense guilt. And would cry sometimes, just for the thought of, oh my gosh, what did I do? Why wasn't I strong enough to make a different decision? And that decision was made before I came to be saved, before I had a relationship with God. But after I got saved, I had a relationship with God, it still tormented me. I was not able to forgive myself. I was not able to get over the guilt, because every accomplishment that I would have in my life, everything that I would accomplish, I'm like, it doesn't mean anything, because I did this bad thing. And if I would have made a different decision, it's going back and forth. If I would have made a different decision, would my life had turned out the same way that it did? And then, yes, I still could have done these things. I still could have accomplished these things if I wouldn't have had an abortion. And so it was just this constant, me at one point feeling like I didn't even deserve to be forgiven for that I needed to live in that torment, and not forgive myself, because it was just such a horrible thing. And I think for me, it was really getting to know who God was for myself, and understanding forgiveness from his aspect of, once I go to him with repentance in my heart and ask him to forgive me for these things, it's done. If he's not remembering it and he's wiped the slate clean, then why am I continuing to punish myself over and over again? But it was also telling myself that God's grace was sufficient enough for anything that I did, for any mistake that I made, that his grace was sufficient. And trusting him, we talk about trusting him when he told me that I was forgiven, and that, I deserved to not feel that guilt anymore. What is, why is that? I don't know. Why is it so hard for us to forgive ourselves? Or, what do you think about?
I think when I think about the process that I've had to go through for self-forgiveness, I think it's because our environment and just some of the teaching that we get is so punitive. And I think that really and judgy
Yeah.
and critical.
Yeah.
And so we internalize all of that within ourselves. I mean, I don't know, most parents, and I'm, got you by about 20 something years. But I know when I was coming up, it was very punitive. It was very little teaching about when we did something wrong. It was like you were made to feel wrong and bad. Bad. And so I think we internalize that, and then as we grow and become adults, we're beating up on ourselves more than anyone else ever could.
Yeah.
And the problem with holding on to that, and you gave a perfect example, look how it impacted your spirit and your emotions by holding on to the lack of forgiveness for yourself. And then the other thing that happens is then we start to draw people to us who will be more than happy to sign on with that spirit.
Right.
They'll be more than happy. You'll draw critical people to you, abusive people to you, because I'm already beaten up on myself. So it's almost like I have an invisible sign on my back saying, kick me.
Yeah.
I'm already kicking myself, so why shouldn't you too? And so it's so important to really get that out the way.
Yeah.
It's one and done with Jesus. And I think Pastor uses the example, okay, the bill's been paid. Why would you keep going back and paying the same bill over and over again?
Yeah.
Now, again, like you said, the repentance and the amending of the behavior has to be in place. Otherwise, I think it's a vicious cycle. Okay, I keep doing it over and over again. Okay, see, I knew I wasn't no good. And then it just becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that it's freedom to
Yes. Yeah.
And we also can't let other people put us back in that box, because they will be more than happy to want to do that and remind you of your past.
Yes. And I think definitely when it went off that God's grace is sufficient, it told me that I was worthy to receive his forgiveness.
Right.
And I think anybody that is struggling with anything that you are beating yourself up for, we serve an awesome God.
Yes,
We
yes.
serve a forgiving God. And like Sister Deborah talked about, a lot of times people will pass judgment on you, but nobody has a heaven or a hell to put you in.
Amen. Amen.
No one can condemn you. And if you are condemned by God, go to him with a repentful heart, and you're forgiven of that. Change your behavior.
Right.
Be sincere in going to him, and the bill is already paid. Like you said, the slate is wiped clean. So by not forgiving yourself, you're saying that everything that the Lord went through, everything that Jesus went through, that it was for nothing, or that it didn't cover you, and that's a lie.
Or that I'm so special and horrible that I can't be forgiven.
That's right. Well, we say you're not that unique.
That's
everything that you are doing or have gone through, somebody else has done it. But, our God is an awesome God, and he has forgiven you already. So forgive yourself for that and be set free of that thing that you're holding on to. So I think overall, why would you say that forgiveness is important? Self-forgiveness, forgiving other people, why is forgiveness important?
Forgiveness symbolizes freedom to me. It frees me from imprisoning myself, first of all, which is not my role to do. And it frees me from keeping other people imprisoned by what they have done to me. It also makes me accountable for the part I may have played. And again, not beating yourself up, but what do I need to amend in my behavior, in my boundaries, in my decisions? So for me, forgiveness equals freedom. It releases you. It frees you to do you and to live your life to glorify God.
That's right. I love it. I love this. Well, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yes, it
I've
has.
learned so much already, and I've got beat up a little bit, but that's okay.
That's all right.
That's okay.
You are equipped to handle it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I pray that to the viewers and listeners of this, that, you got something from this. Free yourself.
Yes.
If you didn't get anything else, free yourself, because, God has already forgiven you for that. And we don't want to, live our lives with be all that stuff, all that baggage just kind of on you. You deserve to live a good life, a healthy life, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And we love you, and so does God. So remember that. I hope that you continue to, find someone, if it's not a therapist or a counselor, to find someone in your village so that you can speak your unspoken words, forgive others so that you can be free, forgive yourself, and we will see you next time on Speaking Unspoken Words.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.